Have you ever felt it? That cold spot in a warm room? The strange feeling that someone is watching you, even when you are all alone. We tell ourselves it is just our imagination. We say it is the wind, or the house settling, or our eyes playing tricks on us in the dark. But sometimes it is not. Sometimes the shadows hold something real, something that watches and waits. These are the moments when the veil between our world and another becomes thin, and honestly, the true horror of life reveals itself. It doesn't happen in old castles or faraway lands. It happens in places we know. It happens to people just like us. The world is full of stories that cannot be explained. They are not the tales you find in scary movies filled with loud noises and monsters that jump out at you. No, the real horror is much quieter. It is a slow, creeping dread that settles deep in your bones. It is the kind of fear that follows you home and stays with you long after you have turned on all the lights. The stories you are about to read are like that. They are whispers from the dark, tales of ordinary people who found themselves in situations that were anything but ordinary. They are simple, and that is what makes them so terrifying. These stories come from different places, but they share a common thread of unsettling reality. One takes place in a house that should have been a happy home. Another unfolds on a lonely road late at night, a place where help is miles away. The last one happens deep in the woods, where nature itself seems to turn against you. Liam and Chloe were so excited about their new house. It was an old farmhouse on Willow Creek Lane, with a big porch and lots of windows. It needed some work, but they saw its potential. They imagined raising a family there, filling the quiet rooms with laughter and warmth. The price was almost too good to be true, but the real estate agent assured them the previous owner, an elderly woman, had simply moved to a nursing home. They spent their first day unpacking boxes, their energy fueled by dreams of the future. As the sun went down, casting long dark shadows across the wooden floors, they finally sat down to rest, surrounded by their belongings. That first night, the house felt different. The friendly charm of the daytime had vanished, replaced by a heavy, watchful silence. Every creak of the old floorboards sounded like a footstep. Every gust of wind rattling the window pane sounded like a whisper. Liam tried to laugh it off, telling Chloe it was just an old house making old house noises. But even he felt a strange chill in the air that had nothing to do with the autumn weather. They decided to go to bed early, exhausted from the move. They lay in their new bedroom, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of their new home as they drifted off to sleep. Chloe woke up suddenly in the middle of the night. The room was pitch black, and for a moment, she didn't know where she was. But something had woken her. It was a sound, a soft, rhythmic tapping. Tap, tap, tap. It seemed to be coming from inside their bedroom wall, the one that connected to the hallway. She held her breath, listening. It stopped. She told herself it was just the pipes, or a branch hitting the side of the house. She nudged Liam, but he was fast asleep, snoring softly. The silence returned, deeper and more unsettling than before. Just as she was starting to relax, she heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. This time it was louder, more insistent. It was not a random noise. It felt deliberate, like someone was knocking from the other side of the wall, wanting to be let in. A wave of ice-cold fear washed over her. She pulled the covers up to her chin, her eyes wide open in the darkness. She was too scared to move, too scared to even breathe. The tapping continued for what felt like an eternity, a steady, patient rhythm in the dead of night. What was making that sound? And why did it feel like it was waiting for an answer? The next few days were filled with a strange tension. During the day, with the sun streaming through the windows, Liam came home to find Chloe pale and shaken. She told him everything. The tapping, the missing tools, the whispers, the humming from the empty downstairs. He tried to comfort her, but he could see the genuine terror in her eyes. That night, they both lay awake, listening. The house was quiet, almost unnaturally so. It felt like the silence before a storm. Around 3 a.m., they heard it, a slow, heavy creak from the hallway. It was the sound of a single footstep on the old floorboards. Then another, then another. Someone was walking slowly down the hall, right outside their bedroom door. They lay frozen in bed, listening to the footsteps pace back and forth. They were heavy, deliberate steps, like someone was wearing old, hard-soled shoes. The pacing went on for nearly an hour. Liam, trying to be brave, finally grabbed the heavy flashlight from the nightstand. He whispered to Chloe to stay in the room and lock the door behind him. His heart was pounding as he slowly turned the doorknob. He flung the door open, shining the bright beam of the flashlight down the empty hallway. There was nothing there. The air was cold, but the hallway was completely, utterly empty. They didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, exhausted and on edge, Liam decided to do some research on the house's history. Mark was a truck driver. He had spent years crisscrossing the country. He was used to long, lonely nights on the road. He'd seen strange things, but he was practical. He believed in rational explanations. One October night in the Nevada desert, late after midnight, he was the only vehicle for miles. The road stretched like a black ribbon under his headlights. The sky was star-bright. The landscape was a deep, endless black. Fatigue crept in, so he turned up the radio. He had about an hour until the truck stopped. He settled into a rhythm, eyes scanning the dark, the engine low and steady. He liked the solitude. Suddenly the radio crackled and died, just static. He fiddled with the dial, nothing but hiss. He sighed and switched it off. Silence filled the cab. Far ahead, a single faint light sat in his lane. At first he thought a motorcycle or a broken headlight. As he closed distance, it didn't move. It waited. As Mark's truck got closer, his headlights fully illuminated the figure. It was a woman. She was wearing a simple, old-fashioned dress. Her hair was long and dark, and her face was pale. She was holding the lantern in one hand, and she was just standing there, staring straight ahead, not even looking at his approaching truck. A cold feeling of dread washed over Mark. Something was very wrong with this picture. People didn't just stand in the middle of the highway in the desert at night. He stopped his truck about 50 feet away from her, the big engine idling loudly. He rolled down his window, ready to call out to her, to ask if she needed help. But the words caught in his throat. She slowly turned her head and looked directly at him. Her eyes were wide and dark, and they held an expression of profound sadness. But it was her face that made him freeze. It was unnervingly smooth, almost like a mask. There were no lines, no imperfections. It was too perfect. And she wasn't blinking. She just stared at him, her expression unchanging, the lantern light flickering across her pale features. He watched as she slowly lifted her free hand and pointed. She was pointing at the empty passenger seat next to him. Four friends, Maya, Ben, Jessica, and Tom, decided to go camping for the weekend. They were experienced hikers and had chosen a familiar trail in a large national forest. They wanted to get away from the city, to breathe the fresh air and sleep under the stars. The first day was perfect. They hiked for hours, laughing and talking, surrounded by the beautiful autumn colors of the forest. They found a perfect campsite in a small clearing by a stream, set up their tents, built a campfire. The next morning, they decided to go for a short hike before packing up to leave. They left their main gear at the campsite, took a smaller, less traveled path that branched off from the main trail. They thought it would be a fun little adventure. The path was narrow and winding, leading them deeper into the woods. As the afternoon wore on, a thick fog rolled in, making it even harder to see. The temperature dropped, and the air grew damp and cold. The friends were tired, hungry, and scared. The stone markers were their only guide, but following them felt wrong. Jessica was the first to hear it, a faint cracking sound like a heavy branch breaking. She stopped and listened. The others stopped too. They all heard it then. A loud snap from somewhere in the trees to their right. It sounded close, too close. They stood frozen, peering into the fog, but they could see nothing. They started walking faster, their fear growing with every step. The cracking sounds continued, seeming to follow them. They were always just out of sight, in the periphery of their vision. It sounded like something large was moving through the woods, shadowing them. Tom, trying to be brave, shouted out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" His voice was swallowed by the fog. The only answer was another loud crack of a branch, this time from their left. Panic began to take hold. They started to run. Maya risked a glance over her shoulder and screamed. For just a second, she saw it. A tall, dark shape moving between the trees. The world is not always as it seems. We live our lives surrounded by the comfort of the familiar. Our homes, our cars, the woods where we go for a walk. We believe we are safe in these places. We believe we understand the rules. But these stories remind us that beneath the surface of our ordinary world, there is another layer. A darker, older world that operates by rules we do not understand. The house on Willow Creek Lane, the lonely desert highway, the silent national forest, they are not special places. They are everywhere. They are the house next door, the road you take home from work, the park down the street. The fear in these stories is not born from monsters or ghosts in the traditional sense. It comes from the unsettling feeling that something is fundamentally wrong. A child's handprint where no child should be, a silent figure that moves at impossible speeds, a presence in the woods that watches without being seen. This is the horror that stays with you. It is the question that has no answer, the shadow in the corner of your eye, the sound you hear in the middle of the night that you try to convince yourself is just the wind. It's the creeping realization that you are not alone, even when you should be. These accounts are not meant to make you afraid of the dark. They are meant to make you aware of it. They serve as a chilling reminder that horror is not confined to the pages of a book or the screen of a movie theater. Real horror is quiet, it is patient, and it can find you anywhere.